It has been said that the real-time strategy genre is a game genre that's about living out the fantasy of being the commander. Not just a commander, but the commander, the one in charge of strategy and tactics, the one who has the game plan, the one who brings forth the knowledge of supplies, but also commands the army, but also controls logistics. You control everything in a real-time strategy game such as Littlewargame. Every small unit interaction, every bit of attention that's provided to specific troops, where they go, when they go, what maps you play on, what your strategy is, mind games against your opponent, cheese, macro, everything that's under your control is part of the fantasy of being in command. But that fantasy of being in command can also mean that trying to improve your skill in so many different areas, such that it shows as an improvement in your skill as a player, can be difficult. It's very difficult to improve in anything past a beginner level or intermediate level, and it becomes correspondingly more difficult the higher up a skill tree or skill stratum you go. And so with so many areas, how can you make improvement happen? Well, you could, by dint of hard work, force it to happen. You can play multiple games, you can just look into replays constantly, you can focus very specifically on specific benchmarks and metrics, and you can try and improve that way, and many people have done that successfully. However, you can also improve in a way that is also satisfying in its own right, and it's with that I provide, all as an introduction, to Paintball 2v2. Paintball 2v2, unlike normal paintball, which starts you with 4 heroes, starts you and a teammate with 2 paintballers, their riflemen with a modified ability. Much like Littlewargame, the goal is seemingly simple: destroy the other building, in this case the flag or the potted flower, on the other side of your opponent's base. However, also like Littlewargame, there is a winning condition that is not immediately obvious. If you kill all of the opponent's riflemen or all of their paintballers, then you will win the game anyways by force of them not having anything with which to defend their base. Paintball 2v2 fits in the barest minimum criteria necessary for you to practice multitasking and micromanagement. Multitasking because you have access to 2 paintballers instead of 1, and the rewards of controlling 2 paintballers at 75 or 80% efficiency are much higher than the reward of controlling 1 with 100% efficiency. Secondly, when you're dealing with the micromanagement of the paintballers themselves, they have to shoot their shot, as it were. The gun that they fire projects a bullet that can be stopped up by walls. It's also a bullet that has to travel at a certain speed in a line so it can be dodgeable. There's an awareness of the map and prediction that's imperative in playing this game type. There's also a second shot, a slower lobbing shot that you can use, whereas the straight shot of the paintballer is incapable of going through any of the buildings or any of the walls that are in the game. This lobbing grenade shot can go over them, but at the cost of being slower, taking more mana or more resources to fire, and then also taking more time to get to a destination the further away the destination is. But the trade-off is that you will hit in an area of effect in places that frankly you couldn't with the normal paintball shot. And so this is what there is to love about Paintball 2v2. Whether you play it as 2 players against 2 players, or you play it in a 1v1 capacity, you can practice your micromanagement skills of these 2 paintballers. They move fairly well, they're very responsive units, they don't have many abilities, just enough to encourage the smallest level of decision making. And because there are 2 of them, it encourages you to practice using more than 1 at a time. You get used to controlling not just 1 unit, but a second one. If you're not great at control groups, you can set both of these units on control groups and practice that way. If you want to work on your mouse accuracy, you can control these 2 units, because there are only 2 of them, with just your mouse alone. You get used to the hotkeys that are involved in Q and the W grenade ability. You get used to seeing what the win condition is against your opponent, and perhaps most importantly, it's very obvious what you have to do, and the game timer is almost universally under a minute or 2. It doesn't take very long, especially if you play 2 players against 2 players, for the game to come to a quick end. But that's one of the great things about Paintball 2v2. Because it comes to a quick end, you're getting immediate feedback on whether or not how you were controlling your units was good or good enough. And there's always, because there's another game to be played, there's always more optimizations to be made. And in fact, you're going through the process as you play Paintball 2v2 of that same improvement that I talked about earlier, but you're doing it in the context of a fun map made by Invincible that you can just play and just feel guilt-free about as you improve your skill.